I want to preface this review of the 4th episode of Steven Universe Future Volleyball by saying that the previous 3 episodes were good. I liked them a lot. But this one is definitely the best. This one felt more like a well-rounded episode of Steven Universe to me. The other ones, I mean, I know they dealt with gem stuff, but they felt more like towny episodes. Maybe it was just the setting, like, because they were all over town for... I guess they weren't all over town for Rosebud, but you get my point. They felt more grounded, I guess. This one felt more like a well-rounded episode of Steven Universe. There was lore stuff. There was Rose Quartz was a terrible person stuff. We got to see Pink Diamond's Pearl again, or original Pearl, who is now called Volleyball, and I think it's adorable. Some people think it's stupid, but I think it's adorable that she has such a goofy nickname, being such a goofy character. At least at one point she was such a goofy character. Like, at this point, she feels almost like a cross between the White Diamond's Pearl version of her and the version we saw from those Pink Diamond flashbacks. Or at least she did at first. And it was kind of creepy. She's obviously been traumatized. And at first we think it's because White Diamond did something to her. The damage that was done to her that caused damage to her eye was something that White Diamond did. Like, that's what I've been assuming this whole time. And the writing in this episode definitely assumed that that's what the viewership of the show would have been assuming this entire time. So when, as Steven is performing his duties as Nurse Steven, using his healing powers to heal gems who got themselves cracked a little bit playing volleyball, which is definitely not a thing that they should allow to happen, even if they do have a healer on hand. Though my characters in my book kind of do the same thing sometimes, so I don't really know if I want to talk. Anyway, as he's performing his duties as Nurse Steven, healing people with his healing powers, Volleyball shows up before she gets her nickname Volleyball and asks him to heal the crack of her eye. And it doesn't work. Touching her gem doesn't work. Touching the eye itself doesn't work. He tests his powers. His powers are working. So they go to Pearl, hoping that she can help them figure something out that's Pearl specific. And we finally learn where Pearls come from. A place called the Reef, which is overseen by an artificial intelligence named Shell. It's where you go to have a Pearl made. There's all sorts of customization options that you can incorporate into your Pearl's final design. We even see that Volleyball has one included that allows her to summon a ribbon wand as her weapon, or at least it's used as a weapon later in the episode. And through the whole episode, Pearl and Volleyball are being very catty with each other. It seems like Volleyball is resentful of Pearl for being Pink's new Pearl, whereas Pearl seems jealous of Volleyball for being Pink's original Pearl, and it seems like at first that that's where the episode's going to go, and it's just going to be something petty like that, but no, it never gets petty. Like, they definitely have those issues with each other, though they're definitely present, they definitely bleed through in their interactions, but they at least try the entire time to be civil towards each other, and Pearl tries to be helpful towards Volleyball. She only really gets hostile towards her when Volleyball tells Pearl what she had originally told Steven earlier, that it was Pink Diamond and not White Diamond who caused the damage to her eye. And like I literally just said, Steven knew this, but when it comes up again in a situation where they definitely needed it to come up because all parties present needed all the information, because the computers at the Reef could not fix Volleyball, despite the fact that they should be able to fix any damage to any Pearl, Steven pushes back against this being out. He definitely doesn't want to talk about it. You can tell, like the movie made this pretty clear too, but you can tell it's gotten even worse since then. He doesn't want to deal with his mom's shit anymore. He is so tired of having to deal with all of the horrible things that she did, whether she was trying to do horrible things, whether she was trying to do good things, whether she didn't care at the time, whether she was being good or horrible. He is so sick to death of hearing about his mom doing horrible things that it causes him to go into his Pink Steven state again. Just as Volleyball is mentioning the fact that Pink had explosive, dangerous, destructive powers that we've seen before, because Pink Steven used them against White Diamond. Something that Pearl doesn't believe, and she doesn't remember Pink Steven using them because, a gem goes unconscious when they're being controlled by white. Steven goes into his pink Steven state, and he displays that same kind of power. And Pearl, to her credit, her first instinct is to put herself between Steven and Volleyball to protect Volleyball. And holy crap, was it hurt, like, a lot to see. Because Steven realizes immediately, and this is another scene from that trailer, the scene where he sees himself in a broken reflection. He realizes immediately what he did, but the fact of the matter is that we just found out that Pink was physically abusive. That what she did to her Pearl, injuring her in that way, it was an accident, but it was entirely because she lashed out in a way that she shouldn't have, and it's actually that got Volleyball taken away from her, and not what we saw in that flashback with Pink and Yellow Diamond back during the Homeworld arc. That in her own weird, twisted way, White Diamond was seemingly trying to protect Volleyball from Pink. Like, I don't think that was her thought process at all, but it's definitely what happened, and it's so weird to think about that that's what happened. And I think that was definitely the moment when Pink realized her behavior had to change. Like, at that point, she still hadn't realized that what the Gempire was doing to life-filled planets was wrong. But I think that moment probably opened her up to understanding that she needed to be different. And that understanding that she needed to be different could very easily have led her to being willing to come to that realization and make that change. And I want to be absolutely clear, Pink still did a lot of terrible shit. Faking her own death got a lot of people killed. But she was at the very least trying to be better, and it was in that moment when she did this thing to this person she cared about, and that person was removed from her life because of it. When she was able to reflect on that moment, it seems that it was reflecting upon that moment which made her want to change, and I can respect that a lot. And I only think that it was that specific moment that opened her up to being willing to change, because Steven's reaction to what he's just done is framed as a parallel to Pink's reaction to what she had done in that moment. And he definitely seems to understand that that's not the response that he should have had there. That something needs to change. And they don't address his powers anymore in this episode, but they're definitely going to have to, man. After this, they're definitely going to have to. And I imagine it's going to in some way involve Jasper, which is going to be super interesting. Before we talk about the rest of the episode, I do want to get out of the way right now that the scene that we saw in that Stevani flashback with Pink Diamond and Yellow Diamond is definitely not the moment when Pink Diamond hurt Volleyball. Some people think it is because Pink punched the glass, and they're saying that she must have actually punched Volleyball and caused the crack in Volleyball. But we know now from this episode that that specific incident happened during a conversation between Pink and White, and that wasn't a conversation between Pink and White. And we also saw her punch a pane of glass. She didn't punch a person. It may have been a similar conversation later between her and White, which triggered a similar outburst, which is what ended up harming Volleyball. But between the fact that Volleyball wasn't there, that wasn't a conversation with White Diamond, and that we saw what Pink Diamond punched and it wasn't a person, it wasn't that specific scenario which led to Volleyball being hurt. It was just a similar one. What ends up happening, though, in the episode is Shell decides that the Reef needs to rejuvenate both of these pearls because they're both very defective, and none of the other attempts to repair, and they only tried to repair one of them, but the attempt didn't work. And so now they're going to be rejuvenated, which, I mean, that's like a whole afternoon of Steven getting their memories back. He doesn't want to put up with that shit. But in the moment, Pearl and Volleyball realize that they've had two different perspectives of Pink, and that they both either used to or still are making excuses for her, because Pearl's gotten past the point where she makes excuses for Rose. She still cherishes the good times that they had, but she's no longer that person who pretends that Rose was perfect, I guess is the best way of saying it. And so Volleyball, seeing that Pearl has found a way to grow past that, she realizes that she's been making excuses for Pink. She just happened to be too close to Pink this time. And that's how the injury happened. No. You were abused, Volleyball. It's not your fault. And the episode makes it very clear that that's the case, that that's the kind of mindset she's been living under since it happened, you know, whenever her brain was free of direct control by White Diamond, at least. And so Pearl supports her in that moment, and there's this instant bond forms between them, and they fuse, and they save themselves from being rejuvenated, and manage to help Steven break out of the facility so he can shut it down. And their design's really cool, and man, I can't remember the last time a fusion character that wasn't like one of the Steven fusions was this immediately appealing a character. And she sums it up at the end when she talks about the fact that the two of them uniting together, now they have this complete picture of Rose that neither one of them ever could have had on their own. Like, they sum it up perfectly why this new character is so great. Because in that last scene, we also get to see something we don't see from fusions very often. We see this new character, this new fused character, speaking from not only her own perspective, but from the perspective of her two components. It was just really neat. I want to see this character more, and it looks like we're going to, because I may just be reading too much into it, but it almost seems like the show is setting up a romance between these two characters, which, I mean, it's not what I expected, and it's not like something that I wanted, you know, but I'm super interested to see where the writing could take it, if that makes any sense. Because it seems like an interesting idea, right? I loved this episode a lot. I could talk about it a lot more. I could pick apart the lore a little bit. I could talk about the fact that even though they don't address what Steven did in this episode, like I mentioned before, the way that he reacts to himself and how upset he seems later on makes it clear that he's not going to just dismiss his actions. And I would imagine Pearl's probably not just going to dismiss his actions either. And, like, they convey that without having to tell us. They convey that to us through nothing but Steven's own reactions to himself. And it was very cool. Very cool episode overall. I'm going to stop talking about it here, though, because I may want to break some of this stuff down and build it up into a more detailed analysis, or maybe in some theories. As far as the review goes, this episode was fantastic. I think it was the best out of the bunch. I realize that's an opinion thing. There's probably people who disagree with me for one reason or another, but this was my kind of episode more so than the other three. And even though I loved all of them, I loved this one by far the most. All of that said, though, guys, what did you think of Volleyball, if you have seen it? Also, how funny is it that we got a sports-related episode title for an episode that wasn't strictly about sports? That's never happened before. Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over in my Discord, link in the description. But either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.